evening. Um, Today's guest is lives in New York, so it's kind of well towards the noon right now in New York. This is Hannah Klein. Welcome to my podcast, Hannah Klein's Time. So before starting my podcast, please be sure to download my episodes. Not just my episodes, the interviews, discussions. Talk about my podcast with your friends. And also, please visit my homepage, https://officialhannahklein.com, and read my blog posts. Um, you can check the latest episode of my podcast there too. But anyways, today's guest is retired Major of the United States Army Montgomery Granger. He has been mobilized 3 times and he served in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and in 2006 he wrote a memoir called Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay, a memoir of a citizen's warrior. It is He has been invited to Fox News as a guest. Today I got to hear various moving, touching stories of himself, and also, a lot of stories based on his experience, and not just that. But anyways, I hope that you don't miss reading his book. I will introduce his book on the intro, and also I will post the Amazon address of his book. So please purchase a copy of his book. Don't forget it. But anyway, please welcome Monty, my friend of a long time. Recording. Okay. So how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good.
Um,
Um, Had several recent trips to the local Veterans Administration medical facility for this or that, and that's kind of an ongoing thing in my life right now.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
Been retired for about 3 years from my civilian job in the military since 2008. So
Oh,
some of the things that may have happened to me overseas are manifesting now. I'm 62. Uh,
ah,
And so I'm on an adventure with the Veterans Administration.
oh, I see. But you must be supporting the service members, and the
Certainly,
veterans.
certainly,
Obviously.
the disturbing fact, unfortunately, Hannah, is that estimates are that 17
Hmm.
U.S. military veterans commit suicide every day.
Oh, yes, yes.
And my hypothesis is that it has something to do with the processes in the Veterans Administration, how we're treated, the process of having to prove that our ailment is service related
Oh,
is odd to me because when we agreed to go to war, we didn't question it. We did our duty
mm,
100%, not 20%.
mm.
I can't imagine going up to Sergeant and say, "Hey, Sarge, I only want to risk 20% on this mission." Okay, that's not how it went. We did an all-in bet
Yeah,
for
exactly.
everything, up
Yeah.
into including our lives. And those who lost that bet are in the ground. And the
Yeah.
rest of us are fighting that battle right now.
Yes.
I don't really need the money. It's not
Mm,
about that. It's about the treatment in a facility who should know
mhm.
about the ailments that I have.
Yeah.
But it's this whole long
Mhm.
process to qualify you,
Yes.
to certify. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm a veteran. I have a DD 214. I raised my right. I can't. They have all my military records. I don't understand. You know,
Oh.
Abraham Lincoln said in the second inaugural address to care
Mhm.
for those that bore the battle. And it's not a qualified statement. So if we were in combat, care
Yeah.
for us. Just
Yeah.
care for us.
Exactly. I mean, I have been to Camp Zama, which is, where MacArthur was the first commander. And,
Hmm.
I have also told them, and also I have come across, veterans on the plane from time to time. And, I have high respect for them because,
So,
it's not, as you say, it's not just, 20%. 50%. It's your whole life, you know? Exactly. Yeah.
so I'm going through that now, but I'm blogging fiercely about it.
Oh,
I
are
don't. Do
you?
you use? Yeah. Do you use AI at all?
I do
AI
sometimes.
chatbots at all? Have you used Grok, which is the X platform AI?
Oh, not really. I mean, it's not because I don't like AI. It's just because of my technical, poor technical thing.
I use it because I'm curious. I'm curious to
Oh,
know, how they're programmed. So
oh, okay.
with each chatbot that I encounter a lot. I use it quite a bit each day.
Uh-huh.
I ask philosophical questions and hard questions about abortion and rights and privileges and about philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days ago, I was having a chat with Grok, and I was telling Grok about what's going on with the VA. Now, the problem with Grok is it doesn't have a memory. In
Oh,
other words, after each conversation, it refreshes, which
oh,
I found very frustrating. So I told Grok, I said, you know what? This is really frustrating. I said, have you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky? In Vanilla
yeah,
Sky, right,
right.
the main character dies,
Yeah.
but is really having a waking dream.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, he gets frustrated and disoriented or whatever, and he says, tech support.
Mm.
Well, the words tech support are a wake word. And you may have seen Elon Musk wearing a tech support t shirt recently in the White House. Well, tech support is a wake word. And
Mm-hmm.
then the person who is tech support comes and helps him. So I
Mm-hmm.
told Grok, I said, you know that movie? And knew the movie, knew the wake word and everything. I said, our wake word is going to be JLS. And
Mm-hmm.
it stands for Jonathan Livingston Seagull because I used it as a reference in a philosophical discussion we were having.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
Oh,
Grok told me he can't remember one conversation from the next, but it
oh,
worked. But it only worked so far. But each time I go on it now, I can use JLS
mm-hmm.
and then use a term that he coined, which is VA Grok for Veterans Administration Grok. And then we can pick up where we left off. It's amazing. So I've taught Grok how to remember. I've
Wow,
used this
that's
wake word.
awesome.
So he's helped me,
Oh,
it has helped me come up with this concept like an electric grandma. So I don't know if you're familiar with Ray Bradbury, is a
yeah,
science fiction writer.
yeah, yeah.
And he wrote this collection of short stories called I Sing the Body Electric. And in there's a story,
Mm-hmm.
futuristic story about a widower who purchases an electric grandma. So it's an android. And the grandma comes to his grieving family, two younger children, a boy and a girl, and an older girl. The two younger children accept the grandma right away because she's real
Oh,
and she knows them. She's been programmed with the memories of everything. The older girl rejects her for a time.
mm,
But the idea of a nurturing, loving, firm but fair grandma is what the VA administration needs for veterans with a memory. So
yes.
VA Grok will have a memory. It will have my entire service record, all my medical records, every conversation I've had with a doctor or a practitioner, all
Mm,
my test results, labs, because right now,
mm,
I believe contributing to the veteran suicides,
mm,
which is basically someone who's so depressed they're in pain and don't know how to stop it other than hurting themselves. They're hapless, helpless, and hopeless.
mm,
If you had a VA Grok app
mm,
that knew the veteran, you have the key to reducing or even eliminating veteran suicides, and that is continuity of care. Because right now I can go in, oh, now I'm seeing this person, I'm seeing that person. They spend some time looking at a computer screen
mm,
and oh, I had to go outside for an MRI because the VA doesn't have open MRI and I'm claustrophobic, so I had to go outside. I got it. I got the results 2 days later. I had an appointment with the neuropsychologist
mm.
a week later. They couldn't find the results and the
Oh,
office was in the basement. So even though I tried on my smartphone to
mm,
download the results from, I couldn't do it because they didn't have Wi-Fi in the basement.
oh,
Now this is 2025. There are billions of dollars spent on this circus every year, and they have internet. So you know what the doctor told me? Hannah, she said, come back in 4 months. Now I applied for VA care based on certain diagnoses and prognosis and these test results, and everything has to come together
yes,
for these people who may or may not have ever been in the military or in combat makes decisions,
yes, yes.
about my care. And that's upsetting. And I'm not contemplating suicide. I'm not depressed about it, but I can see it.
But
How,
you know what? That's helpful for,
right,
other veterans, obviously, because
you know,
I have, a veteran who is advocating for those who, who has a hotline for them. Yeah.
and that's another thing. It,
Mm,
it says, if you're in crisis, call this number. Now, we were trained not to be in crisis ever. We
no.
were trained that if we get hurt on the battlefield,
Mm,
we do self aid or buddy aid, or we call a medic or a corpsman.
yeah.
That's how we were trained. We didn't. What's a crisis? I'm not in crisis. I just want to kill myself. It has to make sense. And we were trained to pay attention to details, Hannah, like front towards enemy for a claymore mine, or the difference between safe and semi on a weapon. We had our underwear folds measured in
Mm,
basic training. We scrub floors with toothbrush. We notice details. So when we come to a VA facility
mm,
and there's cracked pavement, there's weeds, there's
mm,
construction programs going on for years and years, there's paint peeling, smell of urine in the bathroom. We notice this. And either consciously or subconsciously, that's a red or yellow flag for us. And
no.
when we walk into the VA for the
Mm,
first time, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And that's what we see and experience.
mm,
And when they ask us for our last name and last four of our social security, that's how they identify us. They don't even look up.
no.
Last four, last name. You, you know, you could do better.
Yeah, that's true.
And when I was a young man, I worked at Disneyland. My favorite job ever. But before they put you to work and they ask you what you want to do, you get to do
Mm,
exactly what you want to do. They
mm,
put you through Disney University, which basically is training you on the Disney business and hospitality model. So
oh,
they stick you in a screening room. They show you the story of Disney, the Man and the Mouse. They turn the lights up and they say, "What product does Disney sell?" You sell happiness. How do you sell happiness? By treating everyone who walks in the front door like they're a guest in your home.
yeah, that's
That's it. That's the Disney magic. So why can't you train VA employees on the Disney business model or hospitality model?
mm,
Because happiness is one of the three links that if you break that link to depression
mm,
and suicide, it's not going to happen.
yeah,
And all you have to do to let a veteran, eliminate hopelessness is
mm,
give them hope. And
exactly.
you do that by saying, you know what, we're going to eliminate this whole nonsense. We know that you didn't question the orders to go to war. So why are we questioning you about what it did to you? you're a verified veteran, come in, we're going to take care of you. I think that would eliminate 1/3 of the budget
Yeah.
because there's so many people hired within and without the VA who have to qualify my disability and then say, oh, that's a 10%, that's a 20%. I'm surprised they bury us all. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
good parts are attached to the challenged parts.
Mhm.
But that's kind of been consuming me. I'm sorry to throw that at
But
you.
you know what? That was actually one of the things that I had been thinking. And
Mm,
also one of my friends went back to the US. He
mhm,
now is in DC area. He is in medical care, of course. He is a disabled veteran. So,
right. Here's a drink for you.
sorry, just a minute.
Okay.
Yes, I sorry. I was he served in the US military in Japan.
Mhm,
Uh, but he retired recently. I mean, probably he's about your age. Yeah. I
okay.
mean, he is about your age actually.
Mhm,
And but he's disabled and he needs some care. I'm
mhm,
not sure. Well, he is not exactly through a mental disability, but physical disability that he's been
right.
through. So,
I have a problem with that word too.
yeah.
Military, we come on. We don't like being called disabled. Nobody likes being called disabled, do we?
Yeah, I know. I know.
So I know this from experience because my wife was a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing,
Oh, really? Oh,
and she works for school districts and whatnot, and they keep changing. You can't call them
this way, that
disabled. You
way.
have to call
Yeah,
them
exactly. Mm.
auditorily challenged or what. You can't call them deaf. They're
Mhm.
deaf. You should call them deaf. But anyhow, we have a problem with that too because again, we're trained not to be disabled. We're trained to be able and fight through, and be
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, he was telling me that he's been, through a hard time a little,
Hmm.
going back, but he's retired. Well, like he's back in, but he kind of like, staying in Japan, like serving in the US military.
Okay.
But the thing was that, the part that he was disabled, like he got injured, during
Right.
combat. Yeah.
Hmm.
That was the part that, probably, yeah, like he's been having a hard time, a little bit of a hard time in
Is
his
he
life.
having trouble getting services?
Um, I think so, to be
Yeah.
honest. But like, a story like you actually, you told me,
Hmm.
I think that, it's not just you telling this kind of story. And also, I didn't think of like, AI helps, in that
Oh,
manner.
tremendously.
Yeah.
Part of it is being hopeless and helpless and unhappy.
Yeah.
And if you could connect a vet to an app that's always going to be there, if you use, biometrics like facial recognition,
Mm.
the app can be extremely helpful because there's always someone there to talk to. And not just anybody, not a cold bot. You could like customize it to a voice that's familiar to you,
Uh,
to a tone, to a personality. It can be anyone you want. It could be a grandmother, it could be a battle buddy, it could be, your mom. It could be anybody you want. And that person remembers what you tell them. That is the key
yeah.
to trust is someone who remembers and knows you and cares about you and wants to see you get better. And AI is at the spot now where it can do that. But
Well, that is eye-opening, and also at the same time, I believe that helps the mental state of the veterans as well. because they have had such a hard time, like really, really hard time. I mean, it's not the normal, like just an ordinary state, like physically they were in,
Right.
it was very, very challenging, even for ordinary people. I
Mhm.
mean, not just even. I mean, it was very challenging for everyone. And
Mhm.
I mean, the veterans, and, until you told me about this, I was feeling so terrible, just my friend writing about this as well, like
Mm.
the
Yeah.
veterans committing suicide, and also not just one person, but and also another thing was the depression, you know.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a cause for depression. It's being hapless, helpless, and hopeless.
Yeah.
Those are the three keys. And if you think of it as links to a chain, if you break one, then the person probably is not going to get depressed enough to want to hurt themselves. But if all three are in play and it causes this mental anguish, this pain, and all the depressed person wants to do is stop the pain. And, if there were 17 people killing themselves every day because they were unhappy with their Tesla,
Yeah.
what do you think Elon Musk would say? What would he do? Well, do that with the veterans. What's going on? I mean, there seems to be no sense of urgency about it. If it were any other business or agency,
Mm.
with those statistics, 130,000 veterans have committed suicide since 9/11.
Yeah.
Something would be done about it.
Yeah.
They'd look at it and say, "Oh, what can we do?" They say they're doing that. They spent $571 million just last year
Mm.
in suicide prevention. What are you doing? They put posters up that say, "If you're in crisis," well, we
Yeah.
don't think like that.
Yeah, exactly. We were maybe I
I'm
was
not in
not
a
hard
crisis.
enough, like,
Um,
but
so yeah, it's a hard nut to crack, but I think one way that could work is with the VA Grok, with a buddy, a wingman, a Jiminy Cricket, somebody that you can turn to and trust, knows has your back. In
mm,
the military, we say has your six.
mm,
And it would be comforting to know anytime you want to, you can talk to us 24/7, 365. You pick up right where you left off.
mm.
Uh, because of the facial recognition, they're checking your mood,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's important.
Um, all right, it can do that now. It can check your mood and what's going on. Say, hey, what's up? In a manner that you program, that you request, so that it's familiar. So
Well, hearing your story, that sounds very, now I understand more of about the possibility of AI because I kept getting this AI recruiting, like a while ago, like 6 or 7 months ago on LinkedIn saying like, well, like you have to like educate AI, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't sure what what I had to do with it, you know. And like
sure.
I would just educate to teach them like English or what.
Well, it's come a long way. I've been using it since it first
Oh,
broke through a couple of years ago, and it was frustrating then because you could obviously tell that there were biases,
mm,
etc. Now there's much more finesse. You can really ask,
mm,
especially the Grok AI. You can ask any question you want, and it's going to finesse it. It's going to play the middle. It's not going to take sides. It's
yeah,
not going to try to squash your speech.
mm,
It's going to answer your question, and now it can reference things on the internet. So, with an answer to a question, you'll get multiple references. So, you can check them out yourself and maybe use a quote from one of the references or ask the bot to dig deeper. Um, and they show their work,
um, but
you know.
maybe you came up with a new way, technology, new way to use this technology to a
I hope
different
so.
level.
It's certainly possible. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
And Grok confirmed that.
I really
XAI
hope.
is their research
Mm,
arm of X. So XAI.
Mm.
does all the research and development for their software,
Yes.
both for their platforms. I guess it's very broad in its scope. And Grok confirmed that, yes, this is all possible.
Wow. But um, I don't know if you remember, but like this is the time there was a hard there was a time when this Islamic Jihad sent a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
photo of James Foley. I
Oh,
don't.
fully.
Oh yeah, I'm just one, several photos with
Mm-hmm.
all the links. I mean, think of how much you get angry at
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I was furious. And
Sure.
like the combat soldiers, my friend's actually husband is a combat soldier as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they have to go through all this, and like it's not just sometimes, like comforting words or just I don't know, just did not know what to express because I
Sure.
was so angry. And
Sure.
like, oh my God, like, like when I was actually, thinking, about quit, asking you questions,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a long time ago that I got your book.
Mm-hmm.
Like very, very, very long time ago. And you know we don't have anything in common because your background is being a service member, being a professional, service member. And
Right.
I am more of an like author, so like have been an author. So well, you have been an author. I mean, it's
Sure.
a different perspective. But what made me think of is, thinking of 9/11, which was much uh like like shocking, horrific to
Sure.
you because you live in New York,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little different for New Yorkers, I think.
yeah,
It hit home because you knew people,
yeah.
because it affected your community.
Yes, exactly.
Because on Long Island, a lot of people work in the city as police officers, first responders, and firefighters.
Yeah,
So it was personal. It's still personal.
yeah.
9/11 changed my life forever. And God forgive me, I hate those who perpetrated this madness.
Yeah.
Um, I ask forgiveness for that. But the feelings are very strong and they're very raw. And everywhere on Long Island, you can see monuments, pieces of steel from the Twin Towers made into monuments in front of school buildings, in front of firehouses. They're everywhere,
Yes.
as a constant reminder of the fact that we were attacked,
Mm.
and we were attacked because of who we are.
Yeah.
We
And
say
then
around we
yeah.
say around here, it's very personal. We say around here that the global war on terror really started November 21st, 1979. A local young man who had joined the Marine Corps was killed on that date in Islamabad, Pakistan, when busloads of students
Mm.
stormed the U.S. embassy there. He was an embassy guard, and he
Oh,
was shot in the head while defending the embassy on the roof. He died several hours later.
oh.
Um, but that was the first death, in my mind, of the global war on terror. Stephen A. Crowley. Um, President Jimmy Carter attended his funeral. It was a big national deal, but it seemed like the U.S. put blinders on,
Mm.
and the mullahs in Iran called for jihad after we brought the Shah of Iran to the U.S. for cancer treatment,
Mm.
and that was it. That they're still using that. In fact, they still use the Crusades.
Mm.
They call us Crusaders.
Yeah.
So we're kind of stuck in this sort of rodent exercise wheel. The harder we run, the faster it goes. And we
Mm.
have to come up with solutions. And there seems to be, throughout history, there have been solutions. For example, almost 80 years ago, World War II ended. Now,
Yes.
we still have troops in Germany, Japan, Italy, almost 80 years after going to war with these countries.
Hmm.
And now they're among the most prosperous and peaceful in the world, not in spite of the US, but because of the US.
Yes, exactly.
Because we restricted, they could only use 1% GNP on defense.
Mm.
So, we secured the defense of these countries.
Mm.
Where are you going to put all your money? Well, you put it back into infrastructure. And
Exactly.
Japan certainly has done a great job of that. But this is what needs to happen in the Middle East. There needs to be an equivalent to a Middle East Marshall Plan,
Mm.
just like there was for Europe and the reconstruction in Japan. If the Arab countries can get together,
Mm.
Arab Arab League, or you know, come together
Yes.
and decide that this is never going to happen again,
Mm.
and you're going to guarantee everyone's safety and peacefulness, and you're going to enforce laws, get rid of terrorists, it can happen, but there has to be a political will. Um,
Exactly. Yes.
and the U.S. has to be very careful here.
Mm.
We've learned throughout history, 18th, 19th, 20th century, that if your political and military goals are not the same, take Vietnam, for example,
Oh.
you will fail. However, if your political and military goals are the same, World War II, you will be successful. So we have to be very careful. I think Donald Trump is one who is very careful because he seems to value human life.
Yeah.
That to commit the sons and daughters of Americans
Yeah.
would have to be something very, very catastrophic and important. Uh, so politically, he has to seek peaceful solutions to these problems because he. I'm not saying he's not willing to commit troops, but it
Mm.
is a very last resort. You know, a lot of us in the military have studied the great Chinese general Sun Tzu,
Mm.
and Sun Tzu. One of my favorite quotes is 100 victories and 100 battles is not the most skillful. Subduing the enemy without battle is most skillful.
Mm.
And I think that's a good philosophy. We know the Chinese use it. Uh, they act like they want to fight us, but they really don't. They'd rather, infiltrate and do it that way. If near, appear far. If strong, appear weak. If fast, appear slow.
Yeah.
And so that's how they take it.
Yes. But well, I was actually, I will go back, later, but uh I don't know if you remember when I talked about like aura actually, to be honest. You know,
About what?
aura, like, UN, UN,
Oh,
rescue
I mean, yeah.
the
Okay.
Palestinians.
An arm
Like,
of Hamas, apparently.
yeah, like, I mean, like, yeah, like that was, like about 10 years ago, I saw them like singing, cheering for like, die Jews and all those things publicly. And I was like, I didn't have words for it.
Yeah.
And, that was the first time I felt so much anger against a person, but, there's another time, I believe that, U.S. troops, I believe that U.S. troops must have gone a very hard time, for example, in Afghanistan or, in Iraq, you know. It's just unimaginable. But, at the same time, October 7th, I think we saw part of it. And also, we see 9/11, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, we I mean, I cannot, as a foreigner, I cannot, talk about the incompetent, something, I cannot blame for it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just horrible, what the people went through. And also,
Still
uh,
going through.
yeah, it is still horrible.
Mm.
And, a lot of Israeli people were talking about 9/11, and, I started to think of the time, you know,
Mhm.
when it was 2001, so it was
Mhm.
24 years ago. But it's still in our mind, really.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and
It's
like I said, New York, you can't go anywhere without seeing something referencing 9/11.
exactly,
Bumper stickers, you know, T-shirts, flags.
yeah. It's um just so horrific. And October 7th was the time when I just could not feel unexpressible anger against this, not just Hamas, but
Sure.
this UN agency that supported Hamas.
Yes.
They supported Hamas.
Yes, it
And
is.
they're still trying to get away with, with all these excuses, and trying to blame, Israel.
Mhm.
And ICC is just unbelievable. But it's it's just that, like war on terror, that's the term I think that, became very famous, in 2001. And
Sure.
a lot of journalists, I don't think that they have discussed the wars like in the rightful manner, or exactly in the manner that is happening, you know.
I
But
agree.
like when you hear well, Iraq war, for example, it's very
Mhm.
different from what the media says, really. And
Definitely. Hmm.
and I um I think I believe, I mean, the sacrifices of the United States was not meaningless. I still believe.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very it's a lot to me because I mean, I have seen a lot of scenes of very hard, like the terrorist attacks that you troops had to go through.
Yeah.
And um, I just thought that the media are not the telling the truth at all. Especially for-
They aren't. And in fact, I cover that in the book, as you know, about my time at Gitmo, that Bob Franken from CNN was always pestering us for classified information so he could write a story.
Yeah,
And I got a lesson in what the media really is. It's a business.
yeah,
And if you break the story, that's worth money to you because you get more viewers.
yeah.
So his angle was, hey, tell me what I need to know, or I'll just make it up. And he'll make it up to make it sound a lot more titillating and interesting than the truth.
Mm,
Because the truth at Gitmo was pretty boring. It was just a routine, day in, day out. And we treated all the detainees with dignity and respect. But understand there were two missions. One was incarceration, which was the military or army mission, and then the other mission was intelligence. And apparently that was conducted by corrupt alphabet soup, secret squirrel, shadow warrior spooks, the
mm,
alphabet soup agencies,
mm,
not by the military. We did not perform any of the enhanced interrogation techniques, including waterboarding. But if you read President Bush's autobiography, Decision Points, he mentions in his book that waterboarding was approved and legal at the time it was used, did not meet the international definition of torture at the time,
Mhm.
and was only used on a handful of detainees in order to obtain important information, valuable information that saved many lives. That's right from the president's mouth. And then Donald Rumsfeld, in his autobiography, Known and Unknown, says that not one DOD personnel, either civilian or military, was ever trained in enhanced interrogation techniques or waterboarding. So we're not part of that. And now we're kind of finding out in the last couple of years, or what's happened to Donald Trump,
Mhm.
that there are multiple governments. There's a shadow government. There's a cabal. There's a group of people working against the principles of the United States. Um, and that's kind of scary. It's scary, to know that that happened. But while we were there, the press was very eager to learn things they knew they weren't supposed to know.
That's true. That is very true. Like, um, I think that, people should read, your experience, in the Guantanamo, in your book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, yeah, that's something. I will put the URL for this book,
Oh, great. Thank you.
and a photo as well.
That's very kind. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay. Yes, that's a great book. And I'm very fortunate that I got to know you actually, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Or
you. That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate that.
and so you yourself have served in Iraq, you told me, right?
Yes, Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I was all over Iraq. So I did the same mission basically in Iraq that I had done at Gitmo in 2002, which is coordinate medical, preventive medical, and environmental services for
So you were responsible for for
coordinating
for
services. So I coordinated medical, preventive medical, and environmental services for detention operations. And I did that several places in Iraq, including Baghdad, including Abu Ghraib prison after the scandal there. And that was very eye opening. That I plan to write a sequel. So you get to know all the stuff that went on there after the scandal of
oh,
abuse. So, which was a very embarrassing, humiliating experience for all of us, that would happen. But it happened because of the secret squirrels. It happened because of the contracted security firm who was in charge of interrogations,
mhm.
convinced very naive and undertrained National Guard troops from Maryland to do XYZ, which unfortunately was abusive to the detainees. It's something we all abhor. We got along great with the International Committee of the Red Cross, who told me at Gitmo that no one does detention operations better than the U.S. I
Mhm.
was told that again by an ICRC liaison in Iraq, that they were not there eyeballing how we treat detainees, but how the Iraqis treat detainees.
Oh,
So the myth out there is that we run a gulag at Gitmo, and it's very different. I mean, we provide free Qurans, prayer rugs, beads, services of U.S. military,
mm,
uh, Muslim chaplains, halal meals, special Muslim holiday meals, including lamb and baklava. They
mm.
get world class health, vision, dental care, recreation, correspondence,
They're
lawyers,
also
all free.
no.
Would they do that for us? No. What they do, and 750 plus have been released out of just under 800 ever at Gitmo.
Yeah, exactly.
None of them have been beheaded or executed, blown up, hacked to death, dragged naked and lifeless through the street, drowned, or burned alive. All things our enemies have done to us and
Yeah,
or our allies.
yeah, exactly.
So there's no moral comparison between Gitmo or how we treat
Mhm.
detainees and how our enemies treat
Yeah.
their captives. And now the October 7th is right in our faces about how they treat people they capture. They
Exactly.
murder them. They torture them.
Yeah.
They set them on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And none of that is, we don't do any of that. And yet the world media point a finger at Gitmo and, oh, you're torturing people. No, we released almost all of them.
Yeah, and IDF, faced allegations for the same reasons. I mean,
Well, we found in the Al Qaeda training manual that we got
mm,
that they're trained to lie about their treatment in captivity and to lawyer up as soon as they can. So they've practiced lying
mm,
about how they're treated, and they know what to say to get somebody's attention.
yeah,
And that goes on constantly. And I have all the confidence in the world. The IDF followed Geneva Conventions
yeah.
and law of war in their treatment of captives.
It's abhorrent. But like I think that, based on your experience, I think, probably what is happening in, prison in Israel as well.
Sure.
Can
I have
imagine.
a good idea. I've never been there,
Of course.
but I have a pretty good idea what goes on.
Yeah,
And, you know, the evidence is they were able to release thousands
yeah,
of captives who seemed very happy and joyous to return to Gaza in their lives of terror.
yeah,
But when they released Israeli and other captives from October 7th, some were missing digits, some were limping,
yeah,
some were dead.
yeah, exactly.
So,
And
no
it's
comparison.
there is no moral comparison to, Israel, what Israel went through and what these Gazans, are really.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
and what's shocking is that, you know, uh like what's shocking is that it's not just Hamas, you know.
right.
Hamas is democratically elected,
Sure.
by the people.
Certainly. And, the surrounding countries, and gee, let's go back in
Mm,
time, 1967, 1973, and so many other incidents where the neighbors of Israel tried to wipe them off the map. And not apologetically, by the way.
yeah,
So they've tried over and over and over again. And some of these countries are still supporting Palestinians or Hamas, including Qatar, Egypt. We know Iran,
yeah.
um, Jordan. What
Mm,
is it? 70 some percent of Jordanians identify as Palestinians, yet they won't take any more. But so this, as I said before, referencing the Marshall Plan, there needs to be an Arab plan. There needs to be an Arab Marshall Plan to deal with this situation.
yeah,
And if they don't, we will. And if we do it, Israelis do it, the Arab world's not going to like it. And in fact, they've already told us they don't like the negotiations right now. They don't like where it's going. Well, you had how many years to deal with this?
mm,
And you haven't.
yeah,
And you let it fester and you let it fester because you hate Israel and want to kill all Jews.
yeah,
And we know this. So we have to stop pretending we don't know what their intentions are. We
yeah,
have to stop asking them what their intentions are. We
yeah,
know what their intentions are by their actions.
mm, yeah,
And so
exactly. Yeah,
the idea of relocating all of the Gazans
mhm,
is a good idea.
yeah.
And
I
then to
I I believe.
remove the debris, and the Arab world has the money for this. We
Mm,
don't have to be involved.
mhm,
But if it threatens Israel, we're going to be involved. And you know what? In every war, there's territory that's won,
mm,
right?
yeah,
Uh, just in what was it, the Paris Treaty of 1899 or 98,
mhm,
the U.S. was granted
mhm,
at the end of the Spanish American War Guam, the Philippines, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. You get stuff,
mhm,
right? So what does Israel get?
Mm,
for defeating all these people in 67 and 73
mm,
and now in 2025. I think they should get Gaza, which when the Jews left Egypt,
mm.
eventually there was a war and they defeated the Canaanites. Well, that was Canaan, that area. So then there were the 12 tribes of Israel, and they've had kingdoms and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward. I think it should be given to them as, for lack of a better term, a war prize.
Yeah, I believe so because um, I think eventually, Israel is not going to abuse the place, but they will develop the place. So
Yeah, they're a non-sectarian. If you go into Israel proper, you'll see Arabs,
yeah,
you'll see Muslims and
yeah,
Christians and all kinds of people.
hmm
I've never been there, but I've seen the documentaries, the food shows, and some of them go to Israel. Here you have, a Muslim making Arab food next to an Israeli making Israeli food. There's other, it's an international
hmm
uh, sort of place.
yeah,
So the Israelis know how to administer
mm.
a secular society.
I believe so. Yeah, I strongly believe so, and so that um, in the I think that this war obviously has a clear ending with Trump administration having a clear plan you know but the
Mhm.
unfortunate part was that so many hostages had became sacrifices and still like there are media saying you know calling these terrorists Palestinian terrorists children teenagers they're still
Mhm.
doing it and I hope they somehow stop it really but I don't know about it but by the way regarding the last administration Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan. What did you think of it? Probably that would be the last question.
Well, I was watching it leading up to what happened,
Mhm,
and in fact, I was a guest on Fox News on one of the critical days when it was clear that we were going to leave.
mhm,
Now, in the military, Hannah, you never retreat. It's called a retrograde movement. Semantics, but it's important because every retrograde movement is planned and it's war gamed. So that means you have your security section and your planning section, and they war game it. One plays the bad guys, one plays the good guys, and you go through all these scenarios. You present the best three or four to the commander, and the commander picks the best of those plans. None of those plans would include what happened
oh,
because what happened was you pulled the plug while the baby's still in the bath. You take the baby out first, then you throw the bathwater out, right?
yeah.
That's not what happened. So a lot of things I saw happen leading up to the 13 service members being murdered uh, through red and yellow flags up.
Mhm,
And that was getting rid of all the contractors. So once you get rid of contractors, if you're on a if you're in a U.S. military base overseas,
mhm.
we don't have an army contractor that does latrines or
Oh,
or food service. That's not something we really do anymore.
mm,
We contract out to usually third country nationals to provide those services for us.
oh,
And once you get rid of them, there's no more toilets, there's no more food. Logistics is out the window,
mm,
which is why they left all the equipment because they didn't plan to remove it.
oh,
So hundreds of billions of dollars worth of equipment was left to the enemy. And I've never seen in my life, and I've been to Iraq, been to a war zone,
mm.
where the U.S. Marines are outside the wire, handing water bottles to civilians, exposing themselves.
Oh my
So
goodness.
in a combat zone, Any commander's number one most important job is called force protection. Your job as a commander is to protect your force, because without it, you're ineffective and you can be killed. So, the number one most important thing, if you're outside the US of A, is security. Nothing is more important because your mission is compromised if you don't have it.
Mm.
So, why these Marines were outside the wire, I saw, you probably saw the same videos, handing babies,
Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
pushing people back. That never, ever should have happened. And that's why they were killed, because the commander did not protect his force. But when things like this happen, you have to go up the chain of command. It's not just that commander. He or
Mm.
she was probably told what to do.
Mm.
So what you do is, if you get an illegal or stupid order, you say that's an illegal or stupid order, and you don't follow it, and you resign, you fall on your sword.
Mm.
But that didn't even happen, which is very disappointing. But those Marines should never have been exposed. And I've since learned, as you probably know as well, that the snipers in the tower identified a target that ended up being the target that blew themselves up and killed the 13 military members. And they
Mm.
were told to stand down. They didn't have permission to shoot. So why you would have a sniper and not give them permission to engage a target, a threat,
Mm.
is another, that it's really unconscionable.
Mm.
And we could probably talk for a very, very long time about this and how massively screwed up it was. But in the end, it's a betrayal. It was a betrayal to the service members there and to the American people, because we bought all the equipment.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
So I can't think of a time in history that a similar or worse um, event happened.
Mm. So
And it's
yeah.
unfairly blamed on the military, even though the military had a part in it.
Mm.
In the United States, the military is run by civilians. The commander in chief is a civilian, and the Secretary of Defense is a civilian, might have military background, but most of those people that make those decisions are civilians who tell the generals what to do.
Oh. Well, actually, to be honest, um, well, it's a very much a relief that President Trump took over the office, really, for, for
Yeah,
Israeli Defense Force as well.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
I don't think those things that would not have happened under Trump. I don't think October 7th would have happened under Trump, because he would have allowed his forces to do something about it,
Yeah.
prevent it, or the threat of whatever we could do about it would deter it.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, by the way, I guess that it's time that I have to let you go. And
Okay.
I would like to again recommend people to read uh, Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay. And yeah, thank you very much for your time. And I hope that
And,
you have a good rest of the day. Well, it's just the day of this, just the day of its beginning, right?
yeah.
So
And I'd just like to remind you and all your viewers that I am active on social media. On most platforms, it's at MJ Granger, Granger, and the number one. But
yes,
thank you
I
so
will
much,
write
and I
about
really
it.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Have a
You
nice.
bet. I
God
appreciate
bless.
it. And God bless you. And I hope your mom has a successful surgery.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, I hope that people who have never met the service members had a lot to think. And this is not through the media. This is very much a raw story of um, an officer, I have to say. Well, and also a former military service member, and also as a friend of um, Well, I have friends who serve in the military, and I really would like to refrain from talking about them. But I appreciate uh, uh, like people like Monty, like my friend, talking for them because well, he's not serving anymore, and at the same time, um, it is a moment for the future veterans to improve their environment. And I really and I sincerely pray for the better service for um, the veterans, sincerely. And um, I hope that, and at the same time, 9/11, by the way, was not just 9/11 to me, as it was to him. It was much more personal to him. And also, October 7th, I will be speaking with other researchers over UNRWA, or uh, I have to say, those who are responsible for October 7th in a different perspective. But I really appreciate my friend Monty being on my podcast discussing various topics today. So, and also, I hope that people with various background have some idea what kind of problems veterans are facing right now. Really. I mean, it's not about somebody else's problem. Please think of them, and please think of those who are facing suicide now as those whom you know well. Well, it might be hard for you, but they're they're not just others. They're the neighbors. They could be your friends, and they could be, yes, that your relative. Anyway, thank you for listening. Um, I hope I will put information of the book Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay on the introduction part, and also when I post on social media, I will post information about the book. So please be sure to get a copy um, of my friend's book. And, anyways, it's kind of late. And actually, as my friend told on my, said on my podcast, my mom's having a leg surgery, and that's one of the reasons why I did not have many episodes of my podcast, even as a solo, and also I could not arrange the interviews this week, but I hope to arrange interviews after my mother's leg surgery, which is March 14th, and I pray that it goes well. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of the day in Israel, and I hope that People in the East Coast, my friends in the East Coast, have a good evening. No, not the evening, sorry. In the afternoon, I have to say, like they have a good afternoon, and I'm going to bed sometime soon, I guess, because I'm going to be busy tomorrow. Anyway, good night.